I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this. I've been suspicious enough of the news on different platforms. My battery is exhausted. Hang on.
Aren't we all?
Ah,
I feel you,
what?
battery. 2024 has been a year.
Made Daily. Hello and welcome to the Made Daily podcast. I'm John Michael Thomas.
I'm Pierre Hegeman.
Made Daily covers our favorite stories from tech to social media.
Our expert thoughts and opinions on information security, website design, and development.
And other random stories from the internet. This week's episode of Made Daily is made possible by Cinemechanics, the premier camera and lens rental house. When you're shooting your next film, commercial, or popular streaming TV series, Cinemechanics will ensure your project stays next level.
And Made Daily version 5, the all-in-one secure website builder with built-in data collection tools and secure customer portals.
And one of our way back internet favorites, dinosaur game, Chrome Dino, and BC's Quest for Tires. All right, let's get into the show. So, our first story, this is a little bit of a scary one. Devastating email compromise scheme robs home buyers of life savings. So it was a targeted scam of home buyers. Cyber criminals exploited the real estate transaction, intercepting emails at a certain point in time to steal, I guess, initial payments or escrow payments or something of that nature. There were 200 plus people who fell victim. Seems like it was a Nigerian cyber criminal outfit. And the cost per victim was $85,000. Unrecoverable losses, 20 million total. This is scary. And they gained access to the real estate professionals' email accounts, sending fake wiring instructions to suspected buyers. So I've heard of this sort of thing with like grandma picking up the phone and getting the guy from, Africa to, tell her she needs to, or India or wherever. They're all the same scam to give her the money. But this one seemed a little bit more alarming because I was like, this could have happened to me if I wasn't paying attention. So what happened? Dig into it for us, Pierre. What exactly went down?
Yeah, this one is not your average scam fraud, right? Like you
Okay.
were saying. So this one was really interesting in that the attackers didn't immediately target the end consumer or the final target of the scam, right? They went after the real estate agents, and so they did targeted phishing, probably spear phishing. It's not entirely clear, but they did phishing attacks against the real estate agents and sent malicious links or malicious attachments, and were able to get email credentials for the real estate agents. And then this is kind of this is what you would call an advanced persistent threat, right? Now, normally you think of that in the context of like Chinese hackers or Russian hackers or state level attackers, where they'll compromise the system and they'll install backdoors and then they won't do anything with that immediately, right? But in this case, the attackers compromised the email and then sat on it, right? They waited for the real estate agents to reach the last phase of a real estate transaction, and then before the agent sent out the legitimate wiring instructions, they sent out fake wiring instructions to the customer. And the customer, since it came from their real estate agent, they didn't have any reason to be suspicious of that email, so they wired their money to that account, which ended up being fraudulent, and they lost all their money.
So wait a minute. So they get into the email account and they are just popping in and checking messages, or maybe they set up a forwarder unsuspectingly and they were getting messages forwarded to them.
Yeah, once
Probably.
You have access to the email account, you could have an automated process that watches. They don't have to maybe they were doing it manually. I don't know, but you could easily set up an automated process or a forwarding system that would keep track of that and notify you when it's time to send out that fake message. Um,
So
so yeah,
you're going to break this down for us, like, but so a couple things. There was a phishing attack, access was gained to the email, and then they were using email to close transactions on financial related information, and
yeah.
then yeah, go ahead.
So there's a couple of spots on the part of the real estate agent, the agency, that they had some security missteps that allowed this to happen, right? So first of all, they most likely, it's not 100% clear, but it's very unlikely that they had two-factor authentication set up on their email, right? If you do that, right, Google will allow you, or Microsoft, any of the big email providers will allow you to set up two-factor, which means that I'm sure you've seen it. It sends you the code or asks you to open your app, or there's various ways of doing it, but they have a second thing once you put in your username and password to confirm that it's you. Now, if they would have had this, then even if the attackers had gained their username and password, they wouldn't have been able to access the email because that second factor would prevent that. So first of all, turn on your two-factor on your email for sure. But the other thing is they really probably shouldn't have been sending sensitive information by email in the first place. Now, we've talked about this before, but email is not encrypted. It's not secure, right? So when you're sending sensitive information, and I would consider wiring instructions highly sensitive information, you shouldn't send it by email. They could have used, um, I mean, even a text message by phone, although those can be spoofed fairly easily as
Mm,
well. So I would say if they had some sort of customer portal or a trusted place where customers could say, you send the customer the email saying go to our website to find our wiring instructions, or log into your portal to download the wiring instructions. That way the customer is going to a known good place, not some random attacker URL on the internet, and they're not trusting an
mm,
email that may or may not be spoofed, right? Even if they didn't have, now in this case, the attackers had access to the legitimate email accounts of the real estate agents. So then there's really no way to tell. But even if they didn't have that, it's still possible to spoof email addresses and make it look like your email has come from the real estate agent. So no, I would say as a rule of thumb, don't ever transact or do sensitive transactions over email, which it's a hard thing for a lot of businesses to hear because we do a lot of business by email.
and so we don't think they had two-factor turned on,
No.
and for those who maybe have two-factor on and don't know how it works, if you try to log in on your email in a different location, say you're on holiday and you go to Florida and you sign up for your email, it will usually let you know that there was a suspicious login from a new location, right? So that's why location services is a good check to have it on in those instances. Um, and also you should, if you have two-factor, you would have had to key in off your phone or a device or a uh, pass key.
Hmm.
And so this is pretty alarming. I mean,
Yeah.
and then I like this part of the end of the article where they were saying small firms must take cybersecurity seriously. And there was this quote in here from, according to the FBI, business email compromise is one of the most financially damaging online crimes. It exploits reliance on email when conducting personal and professional business. Um, you could spoof an email.
Yeah.
You could spoof an email in so many different ways. The other thing that I think the industry needs to get better at is wiring. Wiring is like, in my opinion, it's quite antiquated in some regard. All you have is a string of numbers. You That's why a good practice is call the person, verify that you're sending it to their account. That could have helped with this too. Rather than just trusting email, they could have verified over the phone with the real estate agent, and that's probably eventually how they found out about it. Um, and And the other thing is the banks could do a better job when you're going into wire to they know they could get a database of all these account numbers and they could do some checking for you and they could show you like the brand or the name or the address of the company that you're wiring to, which is something that I think they should get a little bit better about.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if we're talking like pie in the sky, if I could have anything I want, you should be able to pre-authorize a wire, right? To say,
It's a great
you
idea.
know, I'm sending to this bank, you know, and I'm so then the bank could say, well, these numbers don't match. We're not gonna do that. So you could have both sides do an authorization.
Yeah, it's sort of it's interesting, isn't it? We'll use email to set up Venmo to send people money over Venmo. What if you get the email? What if you get the email one character wrong? You send $100 to the wrong the wrong person. I mean, that can happen too. So it's again one of these things where we have to start thinking and developing new ways to control this. And I think yes, like you mentioned, a client portal would
Yeah.
be a
So
good way to do it, but you can't air somebody for also like putting in the wrong wire information. So you've got to verify the wire information and you should put it on your customers to say, check with us, make sure you got the right wire information too.
yeah, yeah. I think that there's responsibility on both sides for sure, but I do think that you can't really blame the customers in this case since it looked
Correct.
and was a completely
Right.
legitimate email from. So in that sense, you know, send them back to a known, trusted place. Your website, um, preferably a secure area inside your website, right? And of course, we talked about this many times, but make sure your website is protected by SSL. You got to have that so that you can, so people can authenticate that it really is you. Um, but yeah, some kind of customer portal would have prevented this because they could log in, get their wiring instructions from their secure messaging center.
And
So
and client education is something we talk about a lot about the business, which is, don't teach your customers to use email or um, bad forms of sending information just because it's convenient for you. Like people need to start to wake up and take this stuff seriously. They just don't think it'll happen to them. That is a true stat. I think it's 83% of businesses don't believe they'll be a victim of a data breach.
yeah,
And it's just going to be, it's going to totally continue to happen. And you don't want an $85,000, what was it,
yeah, per person.
per person, um, per victim thing. Like, what are you going to do? So then, hopefully insurance in this case comes in and takes care of that, but it's pretty scary.
I don't
I
know.
uh,
Do most real estate agents even carry data breach insurance? I don't know.
I don't know. I think cyber is getting rolled into a lot more policies automatically. I had an interesting email come in from a friend, and it was a political thing, and it was sort of funny. It was a link. It looked kind of spoofy, but it also looked like maybe it was just like a share. But I thought, dang, this was smart. I got sent right to the ad baked into this podcast.
Hmm.
And it's like, it can happen. That wasn't a nefarious thing, but you can get tricked all the time, especially with, we'll talk into this next, especially with AI. I've
Hmm.
seen these AI ads now where it's a person talking, but it's totally not their words. They've used this video of this person to sell this product. They've got a voice that sounds exactly like them, but they're selling something else. It's like Joe Rogan pops up on occasion where he's talking about selling some hair cream, and I'm like, I don't think Joe Rogan's selling hair cream,
Well,
but it's
those
but it's
those
but it's all over the place.
yeah, those ad networks are actually a huge vector for malicious links and malware. So it's a big way that people get infected is through these big ad networks. So when you're visiting um, a site that has a lot of
Mm.
ads, not only is it slowing down your computer and making your browsing experience terrible, but it's also possibly infecting you with malware. So ad blockers aren't just a security tool; it's a way of life.
That's right. Which gets us to our next story. We've seen now for the last maybe probably 18 months, maybe a little longer, that all of Google and Bing and all of these networks have been integrating artificial intelligence to help us write content. And we've played around personally with ChatGPT. I find it really great for like brainstorming or like getting ideas out quickly and using it as a guide. But then I read this article on Wired that said, yes, that viral LinkedIn post you read was probably AI generated. And so it's like, okay, here we go. Over half or longer English literature posts on LinkedIn are AI generated. So people are embracing the tools. And what I also thought was funny about this article was the AI generated voiceover actor who was reading the article for me. Sort of funny in an AI ad to have an AI overview by a voice.
All right, let me just stop you right
Yeah,
there.
go ahead.
First of all, I want to correct the record. It's not AI, right? We're talking large language models. So think of it as sparkly autocorrect, right? It's not artificial intelligence. What it's doing is it is based on what you're saying. It's predicting based on its massive, billions of source documents saying statistically these are the words that should go together to match the thing that you've asked for, right? So there's no intelligence. It is artificial, but it's, sparkly autocorrect.
And we've all
Or
experienced,
autocomplete, I guess.
yeah, and we've experienced that prior to this big movement of AI, which was predictive text on your like when you're writing a text message, suggesting a word, which is really convenient. Yes, you can get through writing stuff faster. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this. I've been suspicious enough of the news on different platforms. My battery is exhausted. Hang on.
Aren't we all?
Uh,
I feel you,
whoops.
battery. 2024 has been a year. Well, I know
There we
how
are.
I feel about generative AI. I think that it's mass mediocrity, right? You're taking all of the unique words written by humans and smashing them all together, blending them into a smooth paste, and then laying out the most uniform, bland, uninteresting garbage. And that's what all of these AI written articles are. They're boring. There's nothing of value, nothing of interest, nothing unique in there. I mean, honestly, like, who reads LinkedIn articles anyway, first of all? But if you are reading them, you probably are gravitating toward the ones that are written by people, not by machines. My opinion.
Let's hope so. Let's have some
I mean,
hope
there is
with
good
humanity.
there is good content on LinkedIn. It's possible to find, but at least for me, I tend to find the I find people that I like and who I think are writing interesting content, and I follow those people.
And I think you'd not. I mean, there'd be a lot of people who dislike AI generated content. Um,
That's why people have AI read the articles.
well, it's interesting from an aspect of, you know, a lot of how we find things on the internet is by keywords, right? Keywords woven into text. That's what search engine optimization is. That's how we find things. Um, so when you're saying like the AI, the large language model is predicting that and trying to put sentences together, that makes sense. Um, so in some ways, if it's I don't know. I mean, it's feeding an algorithm and it's probably feeding people certain types of content because it's been engineered to be that way. So you get to something that you might be interested in, but then the quality of that content suffers.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, then there's this whole other problem with these large language models is where they're wrong all the time. Like the Google snippet at the top, it it it's like I have it completely. I bypass it now because I can't stand the thing. But when I still had it turned on, you it was wrong like half the time at least, and
Yeah.
it would say literally the opposite of what the first article in the list was saying, which is the authoritative source. It's terrible. It doesn't work. I found, I was briefly toying with the GitHub
Mm,
coding AI, and it's wrong so often that it didn't end up really saving me any time, so I turned it off. It's not useful for me, and I see um and it I saw that it would generate bad
mm,
code, insecure code, and if I would have let that go through or not been paying attention, it would introduce security flaws into our software. So
mm.
and I imagine when you know CEO of or CTO of Google CEO is saying 25% of their code is generated by AI. Well, how much of that is bugs and how much of that is security flaws? And Google, maybe it's time to start moving off of Gmail.
Well, but it could be different if they trained off of their own base, right? So if you've trained your AI off of your own data set, you can you could make an assumption that it should be more accurate, but it doesn't mean that it should be going out live without being checked by people. There's a video I got to send you that I thought was hilarious. Somebody posted this. She was a code reviewer, senior dev code reviewer, and she was complaining about a certain generation of people's code and was walking through it all. I haven't coded in a while, long while, but I was looking at it. I'm like, yeah, layer after layer after layer after layer after layer after layer after layer to get this thing done that could have been done in probably 2 lines. And I wondered, were they using some AI at this time? Like, and then her point was, do I just push it through or do
Right.
I go back and explain to them that their code is wrong? And I think that's kind of like
How close
even,
the deadline is.
yeah, so that's true. Oh man. So we'll
Yeah.
see.
Well, that's the layers of abstraction is uh, more of a modern thing too. You see that a lot with like the programming frameworks. So the like, well, we use Ruby on Rails at Made Daily, and which I love, but it does abstract a lot of stuff out into the framework, right? And so the more frameworks and the more sort of layers of abstraction you add, the harder it is to know what any one piece is doing. And if there's a bug in there somewhere, it can be pretty hard to track down. And bugs introduced in these underlying frameworks will affect, thousands upon thousands of systems because everybody's using them. So yeah, and I think we're abstracting everything because hardware is so cheap and programmer time
Mm.
is so expensive that it's easier to just, even if it's slow and inefficient, it's easier to just run the layers of abstraction because it's faster to develop.
So we're on the fence of if we read an article completely generated by AI, probably won't know at some point in times. Are there any places you think that AI is valuable in tasks? I can think of a few.
So as far as large language models are concerned, I kind of doubt it. I don't like I see article after article of studies saying, the promised productivity games haven't materialized, right? People are using it, but they're not really gaining anything, and the companies that are purportedly selling these tools aren't really making money off of them. And meanwhile, we're spending tons of electricity to train
Yeah.
these models. Virginia expects um, their utility bills to go up 20% over the next year or two, and it's because of all these data centers, right, that are consuming enormous amounts of
Yeah.
electricity. Um, so,
Well,
but
there are, yeah.
one
Good.
thing, so where I see, and I'm not sure it's necessarily an LLM, but I do see some value in things like medical imaging, or if you can train a model to like look for cancer in a cell or
Yeah.
in an
Yeah.
X-ray or something, right? That
That's a
could
great
be
example.
valuable. But again, I think where AI is good is when it is a tool to aid an expert, not when companies use it to try to replace the expert. And I think that's a very important distinction. You can't have junior people using AI to become experts, but you can have experts using AI to, help them either, confirm their suspicions or potentially increase productivity if the AI actually works.
Yeah, that's a medical's a great example. I'm sure it's been used in crime fighting, finding patterns of, things and,
Yeah, although
in
depending on
certain
how
instances.
depending on how those AIs are trained, though, right? Are they
Right.
putting biases into their
Sure.
algorithms? The
What
some
do you think of the Figma AI that supposedly you can feed it a website page and it will recreate that website page within Figma?
I haven't tried it. Does it work?
Supposedly, yeah. I haven't tried it. I watched some videos on it. Um, there is a little bit of a copyright
Yeah.
uh, challenge there.
Well, AI is
Uh,
full of copyright.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
copyright challenges all the way down.
yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see what how this world continues. Um,
I'm I mean, personally, I'm generally opposed, but I guess I'm willing to be convinced if somebody can come up with a privacy respecting, not planet destroying, effective AI that works, then I'm all for it.
yeah, because what if it does get out of hand and we're overrun by robots?
Hmm,
You never know.
well,
I had an old professor from MCAD, Peter Shahalski, who did a AI dolphin, and it was at the Walker Art Center. And this was probably, geez, early 2000s. And he had trained a dolphin, and you could type the dolphin, and it would speak in, go whatever. I can't do dolphin, but it would do that back to you and give you answers back to your stuff. And I mean, always an innovator, that guy. And it was way before. I mean, I kind of imagine like what would happen now if he brought back the dolphin.
just make
Kind
sure
of
you
interesting.
teach it Daisy before you let it go out in the world. You can always shut it off in the future.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to our way back element. I picked this one, uh, and I wonder if still some people maybe don't know this, which I thought when I first found this, it was the nicest surprise, little Easter egg. So if you try to open up Google Chrome and you try to go online, you try to do a search, and you aren't connected to the internet, this little dinosaur pops up. And a lot of people don't know that if you touch the space bar, it turns into a single level jump and duck game with the dinosaur. And I believe it goes on until I think once you hit 999,000, it starts over. I haven't looked researched to see if somebody's got that, and hopefully somebody out there has it and has recorded it, like the guys who finish and complete Super Mario Brothers, or whatever. But the minute I saw this, I was like, wait a minute, this reminds me of something.
Moon
And
Patrol.
well, it wasn't even Moon Patrol. I had this game called BC's Quest for Tires, and it's that little caveman, BC Comics, the little caveman character. It took me a little while. I was like, dang, that's exactly what it is. On that, you jump over holes in the ground and duck under trees and cruise by cactuses and stuff. Uh, Sort of a fun little game. It's very simple, up down, basically, and yeah, it's kind of fun. The BC's Quest for Tires was 1983, and I don't know the date of the dinosaur game. I forgot. Let's see if I can find it here. I don't have it. But they clearly took off. What was it? Moon Patrol. It's a classic paradigm.
Yeah.
But it's just a fun little thing.
It's funny. My youngest she actually plays that game as a primary entertainment for her. She's 6, and we had some phone that we replaced, and so the phone can't connect to anything, right? It doesn't have a SIM card. It doesn't connect to the Wi-Fi. But if you hit Chrome, it starts the game. So she calls it her dinosaur game phone, and she'll just sit there and play that for as long as we will let her. So, still popular after all these years.
Well, now you have to see if she gets to the 999,000 level.
999,000 points.
That's crazy. That would be very intense doing that. I watched those speed runs on some of those games. You get an hour in or so, your thumb starts to get sweaty, and you know.
The Super Mario, I saw a guy finish Super Mario Brothers in 4 minutes. It's crazy. The world record. It was insane. He had there's glitches where you can phase through things. It was crazy. It was
Did you ever enter any video game conferences or competitions? I have a friend who would do Street Fighter competitions, and we would have them in college. We'd have a John Madden. Everybody would get a chance. We'd have a bracket. I'd usually be beat out the first round. It wasn't very good, but
I did one. It was a virtual reality BattleTech giant robot game in Kyoto in the late 90s, and the only reason we entered the contest is because we couldn't afford to play the game. It was so expensive, we couldn't play the game. But if you entered the contest, you could play for free, and we won, which was pretty fun.
That's cool. I did watch my friend play, what is that Lara Croft game?
Tomb Raider,
all Thanksgiving break. It was we just go, he had 10 people sitting behind him watching him play the thing, and he got through it. Got through it in a long weekend.
I remember, I think it was a friend's 10th birthday. Another friend, we watched him play all the way through Castlevania on his birthday, it was an impressive feat if you can play all the way through Castlevania at one sitting. So he was good at Castlevania.
Maybe we'll have a Made Daily game at some. We'll make our own duck and jump version with something fun. All right. Well, thanks everybody. We're out of time. We ran out. It's gone. Thanks for joining us today. If you want to check out any of the stories or topics we covered in this episode, head over to madedaily.com/blog. We'll have the stories there along with other episodes. And if you have a story you'd like to share or a website you'd like reviewed or want to just leave us a comment, please do so.
Don't forget to subscribe.
Until next time.
Stay secure.
Made Daily.